I'd like to welcome everyone to this very important and very special opportunity that we have to learn with and to learn from two Gedolei Hador, with Hershel Schachter, Rosh Yeshiva and Rosh Kollel at REITH, Rabbeinu Isaac Elchanan Theological Seminary, and Rabbi Professor Avraham Steinberg, who is the editor-in-chief of the Encyclopedia Talmudit and major advisor in medical ethics in Israel, and so many other things that are part of his long biography. I'd like to thank our co-sponsors for this important session: the Encyclopedia Talmudit, the Rabbinical Council of America, the Orthodox Union, National Council of Young Israels, Mizrahi of America, World Mizrahi, Yeshiva University, all sister organizations in our larger community. The Gemara tells us in Megillah on Daf Chavchet, famous piece, Tana Debei Eliyahu, Kol Shonah Halachot B'chol Yom, Muvtach Lo Shehu Ben Olam Haba Shene'amar, Halichot Olam Lo, Al Tikrei Halichot Ela Halachot. And it always bothered me that we spend so much time when we learn from our Rebbeim how to read text so carefully that we don't misread, that here in Al Tikrei we intentionally go out of our way to misread the text and derive from it very important lessons. Sometimes even important halachot are learned from Al Tikrei. And I think that just very briefly, Rabbi Soloveitchik's comments in Halachic Man give us that insight. He taught us there that when we look at the world, we don't just see a sunset, for example, but he and his father on that Yom Kippur day, he records, saw a time of Slicha and Mechila coming as the sun set. You see the lake, and you see not a lake and a body of water, but rather a mikveh that brings tahara to the world. And the two individuals who we have the privilege of hearing from today have taught us how to read, not how to read the world halichot olam, as pedestrians see it, but rather to see not just the halichot olam, but rather the halachot, to see the world through Torah, through halacha, and to be able in that way to become b'nei olam haba. They have implanted with us that chayei olam, that is such an important integral part and gift of Torah. We're very privileged to be able to hear from them today and to learn from them all the time. The shiurim that Rav Schachter gives and his sefarim and the tapes and the videos that are available have really made him the Rebbe of our community. And the work that Dr. Steinberg has done, especially with regard to the Encyclopedia Talmudit, has brought Kol Torah Kula to our fingertips, a project that in Yirtzeh Hashem will be concluded within the next 2 years, and a project that we have the privilege of participating in and supporting as an upcoming volume of the Encyclopedia Talmudit will be dedicated in honor of Rav Schachter, and we encourage everyone to participate in that, to show kavod Torah, both to Rav Schachter as an individual and to Dr. Steinberg and his staff for the amazing work that they have done, and they're completing generations of Talmidei Chachamim. But to be able to bring a little bit of Olam Haba, that Chayei Olam bitochenu, in our midst, and make it available to us and to our students, to our children, and to our children's children. A special thank you to Benny Gore, who is the driving force behind much of what happens in the community relations with the Encyclopedia, and who I've been very privileged to get to know and to work closely with. So it's my privilege now to introduce Benny Gore to say a few words.
Toda rabba, Rav Drach. It's a very, very touching and moving moment for me, knowing that you are our partner, so warm heart, so open will and desire to assist, spreading the Torah all over the world. And the fact that so important organization of the world Jewry, RCA de Rabbanim, OU, Mizrahi, and Young Israel, Mizrahi worldwide, Mizrahi North America. It's really very exciting to know that there is such a threat, such a desire for Torah. And here we are trying to share our love to Torah and the appreciation of the work that is being done in the Encyclopedia Talmudit. And this is really a very, very special shiur honoring Rav Schachter as the leader of the North America Jewry, modern Orthodox Jewry. And for us, it's a special opportunity to express our deep appreciation for his knowledge of Torah, for his genius in Torah, and his effort to spread Torah all over the world. In order to respect and honor Rav Schachter, we did a special move, and one of the coming volumes of the Encyclopedia Talmudit is dedicated to Rav Schachter. We had approached the Rabbanim and the community all over North America, those who would like to share with us this project and to have a special dedication and a special brachot to Rav Schachter. Will have the opportunity to get the link to the special vehicle and tool that we had promoted. This is the digital Sefer Brachot, and we will be able to provide to anyone who would like to be our partner in this, the opportunity to share and to show the love to Arav Hershel Schachter and to the Encyclopedia Talmudit. I can now say that in the last week, we are going to have a special event, second event in the President House, Anasi Yitzhak Herzog. This will be in January 19, and Arav Schachter will be honored over there by the President, having the ready volume of the Encyclopedia Talmudit. So I'm looking here on the list. There is 83 people, but I know that there is close to 200 people who registered from really all over the world, from Canada, from United States, East and West, from England, from Switzerland, from South Africa. All of you are welcome. Thank you for sharing with us the opportunity to express before Rosh Hashanah the whole idea, Bayom ha'u yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad, the unity of the name of Hashem, which come together with the unity of the Torah, Torah achat, and Am Yisrael echad. And here in the encyclopedia, we are trying to collect everything and to put it in one form. Toda rabah, Rav Drach, and I would ask you, please, to be the MC of this special Torah learning all over the Jewish world. Toda rabah and Erev Tov.
Okay, thank you very much. It's my privilege at this time to introduce Rav Schachter, to say some opening comments, after which Professor Steinberg will speak, and then we'll open the floor for questioning, and we'll make our process known at that particular time. Rav Schachter, please. We can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
On mute. Okay. Shalom Aleichem, everybody all over the world. Maybe I'll just give the basic kolalim. Fasting on Yom Kippur is a real din min haTorah. It's not like fasting on Tisha B'Av, which is only with the Rabbanan. And a din min haTorah, the only heta that you have is pikuach nefesh, is decha kol haTorah kula. The Gemara learns that from Psukim, not only if it's a vadai sakonas nefashis, even a suffix sakonas nefashis, even a svek sveke. And even if it's the likelihood is, let's say, the likelihood is the person is going to die anyway, even if he eats a whole meal. Or the likelihood is he's going to survive anyway, even if he fasts. And it's a slim possibility, miyut, only 5% chance that eating food will save his life. So the Gemara says in the end of the first parak in Ksubis, lahoch b'pikuach nefashis, we do not follow the rov. Whether the rov indicates he's going to die anyway, the rov indicates he will survive anyway. You don't follow rov, you go basa miyut. If it's one chance in a million, that's that's not called the suffix sakonas nefashis. Suffix sakonas nefashis means it depends on the patient. If the patient is, if it's a rov is that he's going to survive anyway, and the miyut is that he may die, and by eating, this will save his life. So then it depends on the patient. If the patient, that's Reb Chaim Ozer, has a tshuva, he quotes many of the classical poskim, that if the patient is nervous and he thinks that maybe by eating this will save his life, then that labels it, that then you do label it as a suffix sakonas nefashis. If the patient is not nervous about it, so then it's not considered. Then you go basar rov. Then it's not considered a Suffix Sakonis Nefashis. I remember many years ago, I met a balabas in South Africa whose first wife had passed away from cancer. And he says she died earlier than she should have because there was a misunderstanding. There was a miscommunication between the Rabbanim and the doctor. Rabbanim asked the doctor if the woman, she was seriously sick with cancer. So the Rabbanim asked if she will fast on Yom Kippur, will she die? The doctor said, of course not. The doctor misunderstood the question. The doctor thought, will she drop dead on Yom Kippur? So the doctor said, no, she's not going to die. But the husband said she clearly died earlier than he would have otherwise died. If by fasting on Yom Kippur, the doctors can say that normally I would live till May of the Esrim, but because I'm fasting on Yom Kippur, I may die a day earlier. If that were true, that a person by fasting on Yom Kippur may die earlier, one day earlier than May of the Esrim, that's called Suffix Sakonis Nefashis. But so many other things can happen between now and May of the Esrim Shana. And it's so far-fetched that by fasting on Yom Kippur, this may be mikatza of the person's life. So then it's not called the suffix sakana. But if the person is deathly sick, and it clearly can weaken the body, fasting all day will weaken the body, and the patient will die a little earlier than otherwise, a day earlier or a few weeks earlier. That's called suffix sakana stafasha. That's decha kol hatarakula. Years ago, in the early years after Hakamas HaMedina, one of the prominent Rabbanim in the Rabbanut was a Talmud Chacham from Europe who wrote Shuvas Dvar Yehoshua, Dayan Ehrenberg. So he has an essay in his first volume. He's famous for certain Shuvas. He gave the psak that you shouldn't bench Chanukah licht outside. Even though there's no sakana now in Eretz, it's also Jewish Medina. He had a whole chiddush. He was outvoted. Many people do light outside, but he has a whole essay in his sefer. The sefer Isa V'Heto Ha'aruch by the Rabbi Yoin Ashkenazi records that one of the Balei HaTosas was deathly sick before Yom Kippur, and the doctor said if he fasts, he will vadai die, and if he eats, there's a slight chance that he may survive. So he decided that in that case, since Ein Sofik Motzim De Vadai, if he fasts, he will Vadai die, and there's a slight chance that if he'll eat, he may survive. So that's not called Sofik Sakonis Nefashis. So he fasted on Yom Kippur, and as predicted, he died. He died. So the Yisrael V'Hete quotes, all of the Balei HaTosas disagreed with him, and they said he's Mischai Ben Avsho. Basically, he committed suicide by fasting on Yom Kippur. You're not permitted to be machmer. Whenever the halacha says you're permitted to eat, you're not permitted to be machmer. I have a grandson whose wife is expecting a baby on Sukkot. He lives in Eretz Yisrael. So he sent me an email. He wants to know, is his wife permitted to eat pachas mikashir on Yom Kippur? People misunderstand. There's a machlekes in the Gemara in the last parak in Yuma, machlekes Abiyachan Reish Lakish, whether chatzi shir osam and ha'torah or osam and the Rabbanan. The accepted psak is like Rabbi Yechon, chatzi shir is osam and ha'torah. So you're not allowed to eat pachas mikashir. It just accomplishes that if you eat a whole meal altogether, then you violated the Isa Chomer of eating kashir. If you eat pachas mikashir, pachas mikashir, you only violated the Isa of chatzi shir. But chatzi shir is also awesome and atar. It's only mutter if you have a chayla sheyesh b'sakana. So the Shulchan Aruch recommends, based on the Gemara, whenever you have to do an Isser to save someone's life, you can either do an Isa Chomer or an Isa Kal. So the Gemara says, hakala kal tchila. If you have to be Machal Shabbos, so try to be Machal Shabbos on a derabanan, rather than being Machal Shabbos on a deraisa. Rather than eat a kashir, eat a pachas mikashir. But if a person is a bari, if there's no suffix hakana at all, then there's no heter to eat pachas mikashir. In the days of the Rishonim, there was a big machlokes. It's far-fetched, the whole case. A woman is pregnant, and there's a suffix sakana to the uber, but there's no suffix sakana to the mother. It's very far-fetched. Whenever usually the doctors can tell this, a layman can't tell. If it's a suffix sakana to the uber, it'll be a suffix sakana to the mother also. So this famous machlokes in the Rishonim, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't give any psak. He doesn't mention the whole. Doesn't even raise the whole issue. So they quote from the Chazon Ish that the klal is Suffolk Pikuach Nefesh is Decha Shabbos, whether the Suffolk is regarding the Sakana, the facts, or the Sveika Dedina. So this is Sveika Dedina, whether Pikuach Nefesh of an Uber is Decha Shabbos, Decha Achila Yom Kippur, Decha Kala Tarkula. So we paskan Lakula. If either the mother's life is in danger or the Uber's life is in danger, we would say she should eat on Yom Kippur. She should eat on Yom Kippur. Then there's a famous psak of Rab Soloveitchik, always said it up in the name of his grandfather, Rab Chaim Soloveitchik. And Rab Elvela Soloveitchik has the Sefer on the Ramams. He has a whole arichas that his father gave this psak, the following psak. A person is basically healthy, but if he's going to fast on Yom Kippur, he may fall into a sakana. So then that's a suffix sakana. So we tell him he should eat. So then there's a din, pachas mikishir. Why should he violate Mohammedik Isser of eating a whole kishir? Let him violate the Isser of Chatzishir, and then he will survive. But what if not that the person is basically healthy, but if he'll fast, he will fall into a sakana? The person has cancer. The person is a sakana. He's deathly sick. We're trying to pull him, we're giving him treatment, we're trying to save his life, to pull him out of the sakana. So if the person is already a chayla mesukan, then Rab Chaim's psak was that you don't have to be makbid about pachas mikashir. You eat normal, regular meals. So the Rab Soloveitchik and Rab Elvela Soloveitchik, they always attribute this. Rab Soloveitchik has this in Isha Halacha. He talks about this when his father, Rab Moshe Soloveitchik, took his first Rabbanus position in Europe. Rab Chaim made him promise with the Tkiyas that he will follow his psak, that if it'll be a chayla mesukan, the patient is already sick, he won't insist on having pachas mikashir. He'll let him eat the regular. Truth of the matter, if you look in the Mishnah Berurah, it says in the Mishnah Berurah also, but people always skip that Mishnah Berurah. Truth of the matter is, Rav Kook also used to paskan like that, because that was the psak of the Netziv. Rav Kook learned in Volozhin when they were both the Netziv and Rab Chaim were Rosh Yeshiva, but he was more nimshach after the Netziv, the old style of learning. So he said this over. The Netziv has this in his Sefer on the Shiltis. This was the psak of Rab Chaim Volozhiner, way before Rab Chaim Soloveitchik. And the Netziv writes, when he came to learn in Yeshiva, I think he came before his bar mitzvah. He became bar mitzvah when he was a Talmud in Volozhin. So the Nachlas David was still alive. Rab David Tebel was a Talmud of Rab Chaim Volozhin. He remembers hearing this from the Nachlas David in the name of Rab Chaim Volozhin, that if the person is already a chayla sheyesh b'sakana, we're trying to pull him out of the sakana, then you're not makbid on the pachas mikashir. You tell him to eat regular meals. And Rav Elvela Soloveitchik shows how this is, what the source is for this. It's against the Mishnah Berurah. Shulchan Aruch quotes this in Hilchos Shabbos from the Maggid Mishnah on the Rambam. If one is a chayla, he already is a chayla mesukan, then you don't have to be memayit pachas mikashir. Rav Elvela explains what the mikoros are for that Maggid Mishnah and the Gemara. I'll just close my comments now. I remember once years ago, around 50 years ago, everybody had the flu in the neighborhood before Yom Kippur. So I went to the local doctor, Dr. Muller. Dr. Muller was the president of the Broyas Kehillah. He was also a descendant of Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch. He was a big tzaddik. He was known to be a big tzaddik. And I was waiting in the waiting room to ask him what to do. I had the flu. So I remember he was talking on the phone. Different patients were calling him whether they should fast on Yom Kippur. So some of them would want to hear Rabbi Broyas psak, some of them wanted to hear Rabbi Schwab psak. So he held cup, he remembered who asked him which balabatim follow Rabbi Broy, which follow Rabbi Schwab, and he gave an answer to each one. Yes, I consulted with Rabbi Broy, and he said, you are not allowed to fast. Yes, I consulted Rabbi Schwab, he said, you're mechuyev to fast. Each one he gave a different psak based on their situation. And then he looked at me, and he told me, he asked me, where do you daven? So I said, I plan to daven at the Aguda. At that time, I davened the Aguda. There was politics in the yeshiva, so I didn't want to daven the yeshiva, daven the Aguda. Now, there's no different politics now. Those politics, not there, different politics. Now I daven the yeshiva all the time. So he said to me, you have no head to eat. I know the Aguda minyan. It's small, narrow. If I were you, I would daven at home, because you're going to daven the Aguda, you're going to faint. and a good Samaritan is going to give you a drink, and you have no head to eat or to drink. So I listened to his advice. I davened at home, and I survived. I'm still here to talk about it 50 years later. So basically, these are the kolalim. Now you have to consult a doctor, a good doctor, to know when is there a fake of a suffix sakana. That's not my field at all. That I don't know at all. But Dr. Steinberg, Rabbi Dr. Steinberg, he's an expert both in halachas and in the medicine. So he has to be consulted. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Dr. Steinberg.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi Drach, for putting up this meeting. Really, technology is so wonderful in this sense that close to 100 people are now listening to the shiurim from all over the world. It was impossible just a few years ago, and who knows what the future will give us, but at least now we can use for good purposes the technology. I'll also give a few general rules after hearing the important shiur of Schachter, and I'll speak about maybe some other aspects which will be an addition to what we heard just now. So first of all, most poskim, I think, hold that if a patient can have shiurim, it's preferable. We heard that according to Reb Chaim and Reb Chaim Volozhin and many other poskim, if he is sick, he doesn't have to look for shiurim, but nevertheless, many poskim hold that if it's possible, he should keep shiurim, and therefore his issues start already Erev Yom Kippur, because it's preferable that he should measure the shiurim before Yom Kippur, although if he didn't, he is allowed to measure it on Yom Kippur, despite the fact that it's Yom Tov and it's a Medida, but it's for mitzvah and it's permissible, but it's preferable to do it before. So, for instance, Pochot Mikishiur relating to drinking is Meloi Logmav, which is as much as one cheek can hold. So the way to do it is to fill the mouth in a maximum capacity with the fluid, with water or whatever he will want to drink on Yom Kippur, spill it out, and a little less than half will be the share of drinking for him, because Meloi Logmav is different between different people. Whereas food has a uniform share, it's the same for a small person or a big person. The share is kekotevet, and most poskim hold that roughly it's about 30 grams, which is around an ounce, and one can measure such amounts and keep them so that he will be able to use them on Yom Kippur. And again, if he forgot or if he didn't know to do it, then he can do it on Yom Kippur as well. I think an important message that all poskim tell Rabbonim is to make a note to the congregation, to everyone, that Sofek Pikuach Nefesh is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's commandment, not less than fasting. Fasting is a mitzvah d'oraisa. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to fast on Yom Kippur, but whoever is sick or Sofek sick and is a Sofek scholar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants him to eat. And therefore, there is no room to be a machmir, to be a pious, to think that he will be machmir on himself because he wants to fulfill the mitzvah. In fact, in such cases, almost all poskim say that not only didn't he fulfill the mitzvah, actually he sinned, and he puts himself into a suicidal situation, and some even say that ein lo chelek lo olam haba. That far they go to stress that if you can't fast because of Sofek Skoner, then you're not allowed to fast, and it's actually a sin. In Shaare Tzedek, for instance, and maybe other hospitals as well, but this is where I know for a fact, on Erev Yom Kippur, the Director General of the hospital, the rabbi of the hospital, and each director of any department in the hospital go from patient to patient and make a medical judgment, and obviously this becomes a halachic judgment, who is not to fast. And such an important delegation, it's not a junior doctor that tells a big rabbi who is in the hospital at the moment, you should eat. Here come such people, and I know that it has a great impact. I also can tell you, I saw it with my own eyes, but it's also told that Shlomo Zalman Auerbach used to go to the houses of patients that he knew that they seemed to be more machmir on themselves on mitzvahs, and he went to their house to tell them that they must eat, and he is paskening directly to them that they should eat and not take any chances. So I think it is an obligation on community rabbis to know who is in a situation that should eat and encourage him to eat, because that is what should be done. I want to say a few words about some of the diseases that are frequently encountered, but obviously it is not to say that each patient is the same. Every patient needs to be evaluated by a physician, and although it is a halachic decision, but it must be based on medical knowledge. But in general terms, one set of problems are heart problems. And usually if someone has a heart failure, but he is well controlled with medications, there's usually no problem in fasting unless he is not stable on the medication. If he is suffering from arrhythmias, then again, if there is no underlying cardiac disease and he is well balanced for a long period of time, and the Holter done says that he really has no sudden arrhythmias, then he can fast. If he has congenital heart diseases or defects, that again depends on the stability of his condition. And it is not automatically that he can't fast, although if it is a cyanotic congenital heart defect, these usually are patients that cannot fast. So there are some guidelines what to ask the physician on heart diseases. Now, if someone had recently an infarct, then at least 3 months, even if he feels perfectly well, he shouldn't fast because the condition is still unstable and fasting may worsen the situation. If we are talking about urinary tract and kidney diseases, here usually what is required is fluid, not food, because the urinary tract is balanced by urinary output of fluids, and it is sometimes very important that his fluid status would be optimal, which means 2 to 3 liters per 24 hours, and that includes many of the urinary tract diseases and infections. If someone has only one kidney, either because he has one kidney and another kidney was removed because of a disease, or he donated a kidney and he is left with one kidney, and the recipient has also only one kidney that is functional, as long as it functions well and the relevant blood tests are okay, one can fast even with one kidney without any danger. An issue that is frequently discussed by many patients is diabetes. And as you know, there are 2 major types of diabetes. There's the adult type, and there is the junior type, or type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is a situation where the patient needs insulin, and any patient, as a general rule, who requires insulin to control his diabetes shouldn't fast. There are now newer research articles that point to the fact that if several conditions are met, even a type 1 insulin-dependent patient can safely fast, but this requires an expert physician to make this decision. As a rule, an insulin-dependent patient should not fast. If he is type 2, that if he is well controlled, even certainly on diet only, but even if he requires some medication, if he's well controlled, usually there is no problem with fasting. There is an interesting machloikes. If he's an insulin dependent, but very stable and his physician says he can fast. Nevertheless, if he fasts, he has to check his blood quite frequently to make sure that he is not going into hyperglycemia, which may endanger him. So the question, and since drawing blood is an isur choivel, so what is preferable? To fast and do many tests during the day, or to do much fewer tests, but eat shiurim or even regularly. And that is a machloikes, which isur is a more important. But that again has to be discussed with an expert on how to do it best way. Now, sometimes people who are not sick by themselves may be allowed or even obligated to eat. For instance, a surgeon who has to go into a complicated operation and he knows that if he will fast, his thinking will not be sharp enough and that may endanger the patient, he is allowed to eat not for his own sake, but in order to save the pikuach nefesh of the patient. Or sometimes there is a nurse in an intensive care unit or in a neonatal intensive care unit where she has to be very sharp and concentrated, and she may feel that by fasting that may be compromised, then again she should eat because it's a pikuach nefesh that she is responsible for. I'll just say a few words about certain people that have special shilas regarding fasting on Yom Kippur. The one is a pregnant woman. According to the Gemara, Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, a pregnant woman should fast regularly, obviously unless she has a special situation where she cannot fast. Most studies show that if a pregnant woman is fasting the full 25 hours, some of them would deliver earlier. But most studies showed that the early delivery is within the 9th month, which has very little effect on the newborn. So that instead of giving birth on the 40th week, she may give birth on the 38th week or 37th week, but that still is a full-term baby, and studies of follow-up of such babies did not show any problems. There's one study that came out from Israel, from Soroka and Beersheba, that compared fasting pregnant women versus non-fasting pregnant women on the same day of this Yom Kippur. And they found that the fasting women delivered not only earlier within the 9th month, but actually prematurely. And if that would be true, that might pose a serious problem to allow pregnant women to fast. However, the study was very much criticized on a medical methodological aspect. I'll just give you an example. They took Jewish women and Bedouin women, because Soroka in Beersheba has a very large patient group of Bedouins. So they assumed, they didn't ask, but they assumed that the Jewish women fasted on Yom Kippur and the Bedouins did not fast. Obviously, for them, Yom Kippur is not a fast day. And they compared the outcome of the pregnancy, and they found the Jewish women in a higher percentage delivered prematurely compared to the Bedouins. But that is certainly not a serious study because A, they didn't ask the women, and there are Jewish women who don't fast. And incidentally, on that particular Yom Kippur, when they did the study, it fell in the Ramadan period of the Muslims. So the Bedouins, probably many of them fasted because of Ramadan, nothing to do with Yom Kippur, but they fasted on the same day. So how can you compare as if a group that didn't fast with a group that fasted? And many other methodological questions. So I think that at the moment, medically speaking, the halacha remains as Chazal said, and there are no scientific evidence to say differently. However, if a woman underwent IVF, in vitro fertilization, in the initial weeks, in the first weeks after the implantation, there is a higher rate of miscarriage if she fasts. So most poskim who were asked about this situation said that the few weeks initially should not be, she shouldn't fast because she may abort. A similar question relates to a nursing woman, and again, according to Chazal, Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, a nursing woman should fast. There is no halachic exemption. And again, there were some who said that nowadays, chulsha yarda la'olam, people are weaker, and perhaps nowadays, if a nursing woman will fast, she will not have enough milk to supply to the baby who needs her milk. But again, most studies show that even if there is some reduction in the milk production, it is not at a level that the baby will suffer, and therefore there's no reason to have her not fast. So I think these are some of the issues that I wanted to mention here, and I assume that we are about to take questions, and maybe Schachter and perhaps myself can answer and enlarge on other points. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much to Dr. Steinberg. Thank you to Rav Schachter as well. If you have questions, please either submit them on the chat or use the hand raise option, and we will call on you. There were a couple of questions since we just spoke about pregnancy and nursing. There were a couple of questions that came in the chat about that. One of the Rabbanim received a question from a woman who is due a day or two after Yom Kippur and has been told by the doctor that should she fast, and since she has low blood pressure, she is likely to faint and obviously become very dehydrated. So the question is, what happens in, what would you suggest in that particular case? And a parallel question, woman is 4 months pregnant and nursing. Should she fast all day or can she rely on food and drink? I don't know if Schachter or Steinberg wants to respond to it.
Well, my wife had 9 babies, and she fasted all the Tanaisim, everything, and she's perfectly healthy. She doesn't understand why the young Weiblach today are always catching. They're expecting a baby another 8.5 months, and they already want to start eating now. She doesn't understand. I don't know. You have to ask a doctor. Maybe the climate is different in Eretz Yisrael. Maybe it causes a bigger problem. I remember once I heard on the radio, Matzah Yom Kippur. So they had on WINS, they had a comment that the Jewish people figured out the secret how not to dehydrate. And Erev Yom Kippur, you have a lot of chicken soup, and chicken soup has a lot of salt. and the salt helps the body retain the fluid for a longer period of time. So that's what people should have: chicken soup, like we always had all the generation. Have a lot of chicken soup before Yom Kippur, and you won't have to. And the woman shouldn't go to shul. The woman is expecting a baby. She should stay at home in an air-conditioned room and relax. She shouldn't say all the piyutim. She should say the bare minimum and shine, and she'll be perfectly well. I think. I'm not a doctor. You have to consult someone who's a doctor.
Yeah, just to add to it, that individually it has to be taken. Sometimes a woman has really low blood pressure or has a tendency to faint, or other specific issues that a particular woman has. That has to be taken individually. But as a general rule, most studies today confirm Rebbetzin Schachter's viewpoint and experience that really it doesn't harm, certainly not the woman, but not even the fetus. That was one of the points that was found, that supposedly they deliver earlier, but it's within the time that it really doesn't matter. I know in Shaare Tzedek, Motzei Yom Kippur, it's the busiest night in the delivery room. And really, there are many women who come, but they all come within the expected time. So it was a little earlier, and it should not cause any reason to stop fasting.
Okay, thank you very much. An individual who is suffering from Alzheimer's and does not know that it's Yom Kippur, is that person obligated to fast?
I think he's a Gavra Lav Bardas. There's no din of chinuch either. You're not prohibited to tell him that it's Yom Kippur.
Yeah, I heard from someone in the name of Shlomo Zalman, I didn't hear it myself, that he said, put food in front of him, don't tell him anything, say it's Yom Kippur. If he understands, he will abstain, and if he takes it, he's anyway potur. And therefore, that's a way to save both sides, if possible. Obviously, there are some Alzheimer or other demented patients that any change in the routine makes them worse. So in this case, they should feed him, because that might really make, he anyway is probably potur from tzom, but if it makes him worse, then one even should feed him. And another thing I think related to this is that sometimes such an Alzheimer or demented patient is in a home or is in an institution, and there's no one to take care of him and really see to him that he's doing well, and therefore the children have an obligation to stay with him and do the best that they can for him, even if they won't be able to daven in a minyan. That's part of Kibbutz Dav, that Ohem, that one should take into account.
Thank you. Dr. Steinberg, you mentioned that the woman who has just undergone IVF, perhaps not to fast in the beginning. For how many weeks would you apply that?
Well, it's the first 4 weeks or even 6 weeks, the beginning, until it stabilizes and the pregnancy is already safe. That is the dangerous period.
Okay, thank you. Two similar questions that came in. One is a person suffering from migraines. And then in general, people who are on medications, what's the recommendation with regard to taking those medications on Yom Kippur?
Another Rabbanim used to recommend one who has to take a pill. So the pill is not ro'el achila. If you eat food that's nifsan achila, so that we are machmed, that's awesome with the Rabbanim because of achshadei. You're demonstrating that by eating it, you demonstrate that it is ro'el achila. Isam with the Rabbanim. But if you take a pill, that's not achshadei. You're taking one pill a day, one pill every 12 hours or something. You can't say achshadei. But let's say you can't swallow the pill without a little fluid. So they used to recommend they should swallow with mouthwash that doesn't taste good. Mouthwash is not ro'el achila. So if a person is going to drink a whole cup full of mouthwash, then you would say sasem rabbanan achshadei. But if just taking a little bit of mouthwash, that doesn't taste good, not roy lachila, just to swallow the pill. They don't say achshadei over there. Now they have mouthwashes that taste good. So you have to take the old style mouthwash, the real Listerine that tastes awful. That for sure is nefsa machila. If you drink a whole bottle, that may be unhealthy, but just to swallow a little bit of mouthwash, to be able to swallow the pill, that's not a problem.
May I just add a related issue? Taking a pill for migraine is not because of suffix skona. There's no real skona in migraine, but taking a pill is not roy lachila, and it's not a shear, and therefore even to prevent such a terrible headache, it's allowed. There is an interesting story, and I know it was really a fact, by Rav Elyashiv, who paskened that if someone has kidney stones and he needs to drink, because otherwise the pain will be excruciating, so he said, because it's not to treat the disease, it's just to prevent the disease, it's preferable to have it in a way that there's no issue at all, not only shiurim, but not an issue at all. And that is to put an IV and have the fluid through the vein. That is not a nurse goino and not a nurse meyav. There's no shiurim and there's no issue at all. And therefore, that is his recommendation. Who am I to say something? But I think that is a very dangerous suggestion, because if it is for the full 25 hours, it includes the night, and it includes going to shul and coming back from shul, easily it can come out, and then it may bleed significantly, it can be infected. I don't see how a person walking with an IV can be safe, and therefore I think it's a chumra de otili de kula, and Shlomo Zalman was very opposed to it, and he said the Torah is not made for kuntzim. If you're allowed, and if you're allowed to drink the regular way. That's how things are, and you shouldn't look for such things. And I think there's a tshuva by Rav Moshe that to put an IV on Yom Kippur is even an issue, because it's a choivel for no good reason, because you can drink by mouth. You're allowed to drink by mouth. So I don't know if it was a psak or an eitzah by Rav Elyashiv, but I'm bringing it to the attention that I think that it shouldn't be in this way.
Thank you. Question came in about a hospitalized patient with anorexia. Should such a patient, should the medical team work with shiurim if possible and maintain the current protocol based on the time limit for eating certain amounts?
I didn't hear what the patient has.
Anorexia.
Oh, anorexia. Well, anorexia is a danger to life, that whatever is right to do on a regular day should be done on Yom Kippur, because the anorexic person, if he goes out of the treatment protocol, may come back to the anorexic situation, and that's pikuach nefesh.
A related question, but it's more general, has to do with the role of mental health in this topic. There's no specifics in the question, but what role do considerations of mental well-being play in making these decisions?
I think what Moshe Feinstein has in his tshuvas based on a Pirush Rashi on Maseches Tainis, and Achronim say that Rashi on Tainis is not by Rashi, it's by somebody else, that to save a person from mental deterioration is called pikuach nefesh, because the person, when he's not in his right mind, may fall into the river, he may fall off of a cliff, he may die. But just the fact that he's a la bardas, that itself is not considered pikuach nefesh. Rav Soloveitchik said b'shem Rab Chaim that he didn't agree with that. He felt that just to save a person from a shagas, from shigoin, is also considered pikuach nefesh, even if his life is not in danger. That the person should remain a bardas, that's also called pikuach nefesh.
Yeah, and we find examples of even tiruf hadas, that you're allowed to be mechal Shabbos for a blind woman who wants to put a light on Shabbos so that people will see her delivery and make it safe for her. You're allowed to put on a light on Shabbos for her tiruf hadas. Now, it's not, I don't think it's a general rule for every bad feeling, psychological feeling that you can do isurim. It should be regarded, but I think that serious mental illness, psychotic attack, or deep depression are pikuach nefesh by themselves, because such people can commit suicide, can fall, as Rabbi Schachter said, and that, I think, for Shabbos and for Yom Kippur is regarded pikuach nefesh. The only question is, what will it help this patient to eat or drink on Yom Kippur? If it has relevance to his condition and it will make it better or avoid a deterioration, then it makes sense. But pikuach nefesh on a body issue, we know that fasting will worsen the situation, but it's not necessarily so if it's a mental condition. So that has to be evaluated.
Thank you. Question came in with regard to people who are elderly and weak and find it very difficult to fast. Are they considered to be a cholesh, yesh bo sakana, she'ein bo sakana, but it's not tied to a specific illness? Is that a consideration or not?
I'm not there yet, so I don't know.
I guess because zikna acholi, that's the question.
Yeah, I think that the geriatric experts know that with age, person becomes much weaker, and if he won't eat for so long, it might worsen his physical being. But that is very individual. And certainly in this case, pochos mikishur won't be such a terrible situation if indeed he starts very weak, and the assumption is that he will become so weak that it may turn into a pikuach nefesh. But that's very individual. Some people at the age of 100 are perfectly well, and some people at the age of 60 are very weak and sickly. That's very individual.
Thank you. Certain medications need to be taken with food. What happens under those circumstances?
I didn't hear the question.
That certain medications need to be taken with food. So how do we?
Well, the reason that certain, in most cases, that food has to be consumed with or before the medication is in order to prevent ulcer or some irritation of the esophagus, because if it's on an empty stomach, some medications can affect the esophagus or the stomach. I don't think, although I don't know about specific studies, that once a day or twice a day, once in lifetime, if he takes such a medication, that harm will come to him, unless it's a very unusual situation. So I think that in general, if he can spread it out, for instance, take one in the morning and one after the fast, if he takes twice a day, or make it in a way that it will be only once or twice or less than the regular, certainly good. But even if he has to take it, I doubt that it will cause any problem, although in general, he should take it with food.
Okay, thank you. Somebody submitted a question. In the case of kidney stones, where the issue is merely one of pain, even excruciating pain, is there permission to drink shiurim under those circumstances?
Well, again, food is not important in such a condition. It's only fluid that may help. Sometimes, if he is already in an attack, the shiurim won't help. It's too little fluid that is helpful. So in this case, he should drink as much as he is used to if it happens not on Yom Kippur, because he needs quite a large amount of fluid.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, a pregnant woman who during Yom Kippur starts with pains, she should drink and not shiurim, because if she will come to the delivery dehydrated, that may endanger. So we are talking about a pregnant woman fasting when she's still in a normal stage, when the liver didn't start. But once delivery starts, she should drink. She shouldn't come into the delivery dehydrated.
Dr. Steinberg, you mentioned before about a surgeon, for example, eating so that he'll be on top of his game while he is performing the surgery. So a related question came in: does that apply to the entire staff, the nurses, et cetera, that are in the operating room? And I guess a further question on that is, what happens after the operation? Since the person began eating already, is there a heter to continue eating, or would only be during the time of the operation?
I didn't hear the other part.
I'm sorry. If a person needed to, the surgeon needed to eat, let's say the operation was in the morning, the operation is over in the early, by late morning, can that physician continue to eat in the afternoon, or must he stop eating at that point? Or she?
No, I think even a choile, not only a surgeon that is healthy, but he's doing it to help the person under his knife. Once the skona went away, then he continues to fast. That's the rule.
Okay. So those are the questions that came in on the chat. If anybody has any other questions they'd like to pose, either in the chat or by raising their hand. Okay, if that is the case, I will turn over the microphone to Benny Gold.
Okay, thank you, Rav Professor Avraham Steinberg and Rav Schachter. It was really outstanding, and it was a drop of the whole halachot that is related to Yom Kippur. Those of you, our friends, who would like to have a link to the written chapter on Ilchot Yom Kippur and Refuah, part of the series of 6 volumes that Professor Steinberg just published, Refuah Ka'alacha, please send us your mail and information that you are interested in this written chapter, and we will send it to you. Another point I would like to emphasize, we are able to send you a recording of this meeting, of this shiur, and I wish that those of you who would like to spread around in their friends, in their kehillah, in their community, their rabbis, to spread this recording, will be more than happy to provide you with the link. Please send us a mail. You can see in the chat different information that we shared with you. So before we end this meeting, you can go into the chat and see the general information we provided here, and you can just copy that to your cell phone and then follow up afterwards with all those links and information. This is the opportunity again to say that we're about to close the whole campaign of honoring a volume of the Encyclopedia Talmudit, honoring Rav Schachter. Those of you who would like to join this project, there is an opportunity. You can go into our website, and Be'ezrat Hashem on January 19 in Bet Anassi, in the President House in Yerushalayim, we'll have a special ceremony. After the volume will be published, we introduce that to Rav Schachter, and all of you that will participate in his brachot and this effort will be part of this event. So in the name of the Encyclopedia Talmudit, in the name of RCA, in the name of Young Israel, in the name of Mizrahi, in the name of the OU, all our partners, We wish you Shana Tova. We wish you Hatzlacha. We wish you a lot of health and briut. And we hope that you will be an ambassador of exploring this shiur all over the Jewish world. Shana Tova v'toda rabba lekulam.
Shana
Thank you
Tova,
all very
Ktiva
much.
v'chatima tova. I wish everyone a healthy and prosperous year. And we should meet on such occasions. I think it's a nice occasion to meet. Thank you.
Rav Schachter, would you like to say a word of close? Rav Schachter?
Yeah, everyone should be gebent with a good year. Everyone should be healthy, have nachas from all of their children and grandchildren.
Amen, amen. Thank you all
Amen,
very
amen.
much.
Toda rabba. Special drishat shalom to our friend from Switzerland, Dr. Rabner and Mr. Mark Licht. Please raise your hand. Shalom lachem. We have also a representative from the West Coast, Arav Jason Weiner. We have Arav Lawrence from England, from Canada, from Belgium, all over the Jewish world. Hashem echad, Torah echad, ve'am echad, ve'eretz echad. Shalom v'li'itраот.
Amen.
Shukran, everybody. Thank you.